Welcome to Nurse Burnout Solutions, the show that empowers you to beat stress, reclaim your energy, and discover lasting fulfillment in your nursing career. I'm your host, Betty McLean. I'm a nurse with over 20 years of experience, and I'm also a certified life and certified burnout coach. I'm here to share expert insights with you, a lot of practical tools, and some inspiring stories. So join me as we navigate the challenges of a career in healthcare, and I help you find renewed purpose and resiliency, one episode at a time. Okay, so welcome back. Thank you for being here. Today is a special edition of the podcast. We have Jake Johnson with us. He is local here to the Tri-Cities, a realtor. And if you have TikTok, you should go find him because he is really fun to follow, drop some really good stuff, lots of mindset stuff. So we're going to talk today all about your journey and your mindset and all those good things.
Sounds good.
We're just gonna chat.
Sounds good.
All right. So the first thing I would like to ask is,
Sure.
who are you? And what in your early, like obviously we've talked a little bit about your early years were rough.
Yeah.
So take us through that. And at what point did you start knowing that mindset and personal growth was important and that you needed to lean into it?
Well, who I am, like you said, I'm Jake Johnson, real estate agent in Tri-Cities. And who I am,
It's a hard question.
that's not, I'm not just a real estate agent.
Yeah.
I try to be more than that because people need more than that. Like they don't need just a real estate agent. They need a real estate agent. They need a friend. They need, some guidance. So I try to be more than just a real estate agent. And I use a lot of what I've been through and what I've learned over the years, to try to guide people or give them, the assistance that they need, they want, they ask for. So who I am that's a tough question.
It just occurred to me. So I have another friend who's a realtor, good friend, and she actually has a degree in psychology. And I think that it might be, I don't know anything about the realty space, but it might be that people who understand mindset and emotional support make good realtors, because buying a house or selling a house is a very emotional process.
For sure. No, you definitely have to be able to have a good read on people, and not just your clients, but the other agent, the other people, potential clients.
Right.
You kind of have to feel them out and see where they're at because everybody will tell you what they want, but in their own way.
Right.
They will tell you a bad experience that they had with another real estate agent. Okay. So you make a mental note of that. I'm going to do the opposite of that.
Right.
Or they'll tell you a good experience that they have. Okay. Well, we're going to add that.
This is how I need to interact with you. Yeah. So you had a rough growing up. So at what point then was there a point, I guess, at which you said, I need to lean into mindset work. I need to lean into coaching or, Tony Robbins and all the gurus or whatever.
The self-help
or was
guys.
It just a natural progression?
No, it was nothing natural about
Okay.
when it was 2020. It was maybe the end of 2019. I had gone through a pretty rough breakup, and I really dove into the gym because that's always been like my space of getting out all of my emotions.
Yeah.
I don't talk a whole lot. I internalize a lot, and I know that's not healthy, but I get all of that angst and anger and sadness and everything out through the weights.
Yeah.
So even though I don't talk a whole lot, I'm not holding in that emotion. I'm using it as fuel and kind of working through it in my head. And I started listening to a podcast called The Real AF. And Andy Frisella, who is the co-founder of a supplement company that I was using, he started talking about this program that he had developed, 75 Hard. And there's 6 rules, and one of the rules is you have to do 2 workouts a day. One of them has to be outside. So, okay. I'm going to start this in January. I was living in Ellensburg, and Ellensburg in January is atrocious.
Yeah.
But I knew from listening to his stories or listening to him talk about the program,
Right.
that it was all about building that strong that strong mind and overcoming the little, he calls it the bitch voice in your head that says, no, you can't do that. So that's why I started in January, because I wanted to give myself an easy excuse. Like, it's -13 outside. You can't go outside and, go on a 3-mile walk. But I knew that I needed that challenge.
Yeah.
And then it just it kind of grew from there.
One of the 6 principles of 75 Hard is to read from a nonfiction book.
Correct.
Right?
Yes.
Okay. Was that something that you were already doing, or was that something new for you?
Oh no, I'm a reader.
Okay.
I've always been a reader. Even growing up, my mom would send me to my room if I got in trouble, which was quite a bit. But I was fine with it. Yeah. Because we had 2 bookshelves right in between me and my brother's room. And I would just go grab a book and sit in my room. Like, if I had to be there in an hour, all right, cool. I'll just read through a book. Yeah. It really got to me when she was like, no books, you have to play with your toys. Ooh. So no, I've always been a reader. So I took a lot of the suggestions that Andy had on the show as far as books. Yeah. David Goggins and Tim Grover and Jocko Willink, I think, are the ones that I read during that time. During the 75 Hard. Yeah. I have always been a reader, but for me, it was a little bit of a difficult transition going from reading nonfiction or fiction. I loved my novels. I still love my novels to reading and consuming nonfiction. I think there's some rules in my head about if I'm reading a nonfiction book, a personal development book or something like that, I feel like I have to take notes and like apply, and then it takes me forever to get through the book. And then I get really discouraged because I'm typically a very fast reader, or I do audiobooks. And so for me, I've since becoming a business owner, since starting Aim for Greatness coaching, I have given myself that kind of challenge of like, you have to be in the nonfiction, the business books, the personal development books. But I've also released some of the rules. So I allow myself just to listen on my drive and remember what I remember and forget what I forget, and no judgment. Yeah. Because I find that there's so many good books, but it would take me 3 months if I was going to sit down and actually study a book. Yeah. But it's been kind of freeing to just like, no, I'm just going to listen. And if there's something for me, it'll stick. And otherwise it's just good ambient noise. Yep, exactly. Exactly. Yeah. So, do you have a favorite book recently that you recently? Yeah. So I'm actually I'm bouncing between 3 books right now. How to Win Friends and Influence People by Dale Carnegie. Yes. The Immigrant Edge by Brian Buffini. Okay. And a book by Chris Voss called Never Meet in the Middle. Okay. I think is what it's called. So if there are people who are like thinking about, well, yeah, mindset sounds great. I know everybody loves David Goggins. Everybody loves, everybody, whatever. I know what I recommend for people starting their journey. I think you should hire a coach. Or there are certain books that I think are really good introductions. Like I always recommend Atomic Habits by James Clear. He writes very just simply, and the stories are very easy to understand. But he just has some really good principles about making new habits. Yeah. But if you were going to recommend, somebody says, okay, I know my mindset's horrible. I'm not doing what I want to do. Where do I start? What would you tell them? What's your go-to starting point for people? I mean, it really depends. I don't have like a blanket, you do this first. Yeah. Because, everybody's gonna, receive that information differently. Everybody's gonna be different. If it was, one of my old school buddies, I could turn into, that old football coach and kind of, ride their ass a little bit. But someone that can't handle that, like
Yeah.
it's going to be a softer approach. So I don't know that there's a true blanket, but it would definitely be something, A, start praying about it. But B, I would probably go with like a Tim Grover book. It is easy to digest, and it kind of dives into the whole mindset, but it's not like super intense. It's not, even though he's a very intense human. The way I love the way he writes. He writes it so everybody can understand, and kind of, and as he gets through the book, he does get a little more intense. But by the time you get to the end of the book, like you're already raising your level so that
he kind of brings you along in that intensity. He doesn't start out at 100. What I've found, and I think this is interesting, and I'd love your take on it. What I found is I have a really hard time reading or consuming anything from specifically David Goggins, but he probably would fall in that line. These really, really intense male energy feels very off-putting to me. And I've been not off-putting in like a, ew, toxic, whatever. But just in a, that's not for me. That is not for me. 75 hard sounds beautiful. And I'm like, if I did that, I would modify it. That's not for me. Like, but I'm wondering, so I coach primarily women. I have coached a couple of men, and this might just be my perception, so I'd love your take on it. I think men and women approach discipline very differently. Typical, I mean, obviously it's a spectrum, but typical man and woman, they're going to approach discipline, mental discipline, change, mindset from a different perspective. Have you seen that?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. So I was a personal trainer when I lived in Ellensburg, and all of my clientele was female. But I have, I grew up playing all of the sports: basketball, baseball, football, track. I coached football for 10 years after I got out of high school. So I'm very much I have that coach mentality. I had to completely change how I was leading my team, because we did some group classes at that gym. And my first class, I just treated it like any old football practice. And I was loud, I was intense, I was in their face. And the owner of the gym came up to me. She was one of my clients. She came up to me and she was like, I don't know if that's gonna work. And so I was like, I get it. So I called my mom. And my mom had coached volleyball at the junior high for years. So I was like, how do I coach them? And she was like, you have to show them and present it to them. You can't push them to it. You have to let them come to it themselves. So next class, I tried to refine my approach, and it was amazing. I still get messages, and I haven't lived there 3 years. I still get messages from the owner, and she'll send me pictures of like this big class that's going on in the gym. And she's like, this is what we started. And so no, it's definitely a big difference on how men and women, handle and view discipline.
It's interesting because obviously I understand my mindset. And so when I'm talking with one of my women who I'm coaching, a lot of the mindset is, okay, yes, you're going to do that, and you're not going to beat yourself up about it. You're going to give yourself lots of grace. You are going to try again tomorrow. You are going to be kind to yourself. And what I hear from, which works, because then the judgment is removed. And in that removing of judgment and I shoulds and I need to be better, all of those judgments, women tend to feel very much more powerful. Right. But what I see from a lot of and it has to be accurate. I don't know. Again, this is just my brain. I don't know how the male brain works, but I feel like a lot of the really successful men who are coaching are pushing and being like, just do it, just do it, just do it. And I'm like, is that helpful, or do men need to understand to give themselves grace too? Like,
I can't obviously speak for all men, but for me, I need that push. Over the last few years, I've been able to coach myself into that push, but for a long time I couldn't push myself. I needed someone there, whether it was a buddy, you know, some kind of accountability for most men is huge, and they don't want to fail. And if you give them a task, they don't want to fail. And when they do fail, whether it's, you know, something completely outlandish that, you know, as a woman, you're like, oh, it's okay, we'll do it next time. That's not okay for men. We need to get it right the first time, and or at least be on the right path to getting it right. Like failure, you know, is tough. You know, it digs at your, you know, it digs at your masculinity. So, you know, if you can't, you know, in the gym, if you can't lift something that some other guy was lifting, like it kind of knocks you down a peg. And most guys that are, you know, gonna be in this, you know, want to get better mindset, competitive mindset, they don't want to lose. And when you fail, you lose. That's where I have a problem with that kind of technique, because failing is not losing. It is finding a way that doesn't work to lead you to a way that does. Or, okay, I got more work to do. You know, you don't necessarily have to take it, you know, take it with grace, but know that, okay, just because I failed this time, I gotta work harder. You know, I gotta do more reps. I gotta do more of this. I gotta do, you know, come up with a plan to overcome that failure.
Okay. So it sounds like the mindset is similar, maybe just, or you, as a human brain, I like to say we all have just the human brain, right? We all have the same, you know, sub programming of like stay alive, survive, and how do we do that, right? But it sounds like typically we would just come at that from maybe a slightly different angle if you're coaching men or women. But coming to that same idea, that learning, failure is just learning, right? It doesn't have to be failure, it can just be the learning process. Which, if you're not in the personal development space, that can sound like, that might sound like a little bit of a goal shift, like, oh, sure, failure is just learning. Okay, that's just what losers say to make themselves feel better, right? But it's how we have created the society that we have. It's how great inventions are made. It's how people go from being able to lift 5 pounds to being able to lift 100 pounds, right? It's failure it can be learning, but you have to change that mindset from that competitive, I'm not good enough, to the I'm a human and I'm gonna figure this out, which is, so I'm starting a group coaching program. It will have started by the time this podcast comes out. Just a 6-week course just for accountability. What is it that you want to be doing that you're not doing in your everyday life? So much of what I've done similar groups in the past, and so much of it comes down to, okay, what went well this week? What didn't go well? And what do you want to do differently? Like, those are my questions that I constantly ask myself. I constantly ask my clients, what worked? What worked with your gym plan? What worked with your not yelling at the kids plan? What worked with the not eating sugar plan, right? Let's celebrate that, right? And then let's talk about what didn't work. Okay, yeah, you were too tired, you overcommitted, you didn't stop and pause, whatever. And so what do you want to do differently? Right? And that's the piece where I think there's an opportunity for giving yourself grace, letting go of the I should have done better, I could have done better, I'm a loser mentality, and going and shifting into that growth mindset of okay, this worked, this didn't work, and I'm going to take both of those and say, what am I doing next time? How do I want to move forward with this? Because without that component, I think we get stuck.
Absolutely.
We get stuck in, I failed again, and we don't ask, okay, how am I going to learn from this? Because the learning component is shifting and growing and changing and being the experimenter, right? And learning in that way. So
that third step, what can I do? That's the question that's the hardest for people to learn. A lot of people, they're great at celebrating their victories. They're, I'm going to say great because they do it. They're great at, wallowing in their losses, or their failures. But it's that third step. What can I do differently? That so many people are lacking. And as soon as they start asking that question, it'll be life-changing.
Yeah, it really is. It really is. And it's simple, and it can be done in a moment, or it can be done when you're sitting down and wanting to journal for 30 minutes, right? It can be as long and complicated as you want it to be, or it can be as simple as in the moment, wow, that did not work. This did work, and what do I want to do differently?
Yeah.
But that third, you're right. That third question is that's the key. That's the key that unlocks the discipline, the reaching the goals versus not reaching the goals. The sticking with it versus not sticking with it.
Exactly.
Yeah. I often hear people ask, what would you say to your younger self? But I want to flip that a little bit.
All right.
If your younger self, whatever age pops into your head there, could talk to you now and could look at your life, they came into the room and they're looking at your career and at your life and where you are now, and the fact that you are sharing the wisdom that you've learned, all of that, what would they say to you?
Ooh, that's tough. They probably, if 16-year-old me walked into this room right now, I'd be on crutches because I just had surgery on my femur. So,
on your femur.
Yeah.
Oh,
long story about that. That's a whole podcast.
Yeah.
No, he wouldn't believe that I, have gotten to where I've got.
Yeah.
After going through everything that he'd already gone through at 16. So it was, it was a pretty rough road. And there was a lot of times that as a 14, 15, 16-year-old, just I didn't see myself going anywhere. I tried to kind of fake it, but it just I was mentally tired then. Shocked. He'd be absolutely shocked. It would be, it'd be pretty cool. But no, he'd definitely be shocked that I'm doing what I'm doing, that, and then if sit down and, watch the videos that I'm doing, he'd break down and cry. I guarantee it. Yeah. Yeah. So obviously they can find you at your realty job, but if somebody is watching the podcast and they're like, he's got a lot of good stuff to say. Yep. How should they connect with you? TikTok's amazing. If you're on TikTok, you should follow on TikTok. TikTok for sure. TikTok, Instagram, bigbearded_realtor. That's they're both there. Perfect. So those are my two main platforms.
Awesome.
I just like to keep it real, keep it fun, keep it honest. Yeah. So.
Well, thank you for sitting down. This has been really fun. Yeah. I knew we would get into some good stuff, and I appreciate your time and sharing with the audience and just connecting. It's been very awesome. Yeah. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Thanks for listening today to Nurse Burnout Solutions. Remember, I really believe that all stress is manageable and burnout is not inevitable. If you are struggling with stress or in burnout, I can help. Check out the show notes for ways that we can connect and get you the support that you deserve.